All right, so those who are on YouTube should be able to see us live. And so thank you so much for joining in. Today I'm going to introduce us to the Zoho API. And this is actually my greatest topic. Like I literally have goosebumps when talking about this because this is one of the things that impressed me about Zoho. Okay, so Zoho API frameworks. So today, Monday and Wednesday, we're going to talk about API authentication and connection. And then in the upper days in the month, we'll talk about other things. But authentication and connection is today, Monday, and Wednesday. So let's get started. One second. Let me open our Zoho One interface. So let's go to, let me share my screen. Okay, so I'm not sure. Okay, let me share my screen first and foremost. Okay, so I believe you can see my screen. Okay, so this is the Zoho API console. I think I've already tried to do something here. I'm not sure what is going on here, but I think I don't have to touch this. I'll just leave things the way they are. I'm not going to touch that. Okay, great. Everything is fine. Good. So the way Zoho API works is that you can manage integrations directly on your Zoho account. Integrations are measured for each Zoho account. This integration belongs to something. I'm not sure what it's about yet, but I believe it is related to Zoho One, so I wouldn't touch it. I'll just leave things the way they are. So I'll focus on what I'm showing you. So Zoho uses what is called OAuth, which is Open Authentication. It's an industry standard protocol that allows you to grant a third-party website or application delegated access to resources that you are protecting within Zoho using Zoho's APIs. So basically, it's one way to authenticate and authorize API requests made to Zoho. Doing this directly. The other way is the way we have explored. We created connections, Zoho Flow, connections, Zoho Creator. We were working with all of that. But now we're going to deal with the API directly, that is Zoho API directly. So we're going to talk to Zoho directly to get things done. Now, I'm just going to walk you through certain things you need to understand. You can read all this up later, but what's important is that OAuth is on version 2, and if a new version comes, you need to update yourself. All right? So for next week, we are going to be using an app that WebWorks created, which is the API Agent app. But for today, we are going to work directly, and I'll tell you where the API Agent app comes to play. So first and foremost, OAuth makes use of IDs and credentials and all of that. Okay. Now, because Zoho doesn't want you to share your password and use your password to log into things, to authorize things, you are giving what is called a client ID and a client secret. Now, a client secret should not be seen by anybody, but your client ID can be seen by anybody who wants to inspect your integration. Your client secret is your secret key for the integration. The reason why you should not share your client ID and your client secret is because anybody who has a combination of these two details can actually get into your portal, or the person can access your Zoho account. So your client secret is like your password, but your client ID is more like your identity. Now, if anybody gains access, you don't have anything to worry. You can revoke access at any time by going to your Zoho account section. So if you come here, you can go to my accounts, and then you can effectively log into any of the apps in your account, and you can revoke access to such person. Of course, if there's any integration here leading to such, you can also delete such. Now, so and for us, that can be very cumbersome because you'll be keeping things in text files, folders, and all of that, and things will be scattered all over the place. So we built an application called API Agent that helps you to organize all your contents, in all your list of integrations, connect to those integrations, get the data from those integrations, and even use the app as a pathway for these integrations. So for instance, if an integration has to change, you don't have to change the integration inside an app you develop. You only change the integration inside the agent. So the API agent serves as a kind of filter or pathway to all your integrations. It holds the company you are working with can reduce costs by using the API agent. So the API agent app, which we are going to talk about next week, is going to be, let me just try to go to the Zoho Marketplace so I can show you about the app quickly. So the app is what will now help you to be able to change the integration. So you can maintain the same record, but then change the integration in that record so that the applications you are passing through Zoho Creator will be able to use the correct integration data to carry out their tasks. The integration data you often need should be like a refresh token or access token or whatever it is that is needed per time in the application. You can pass it through Zoho Creator. So let's check for API Agent. Now, API Agent was developed by WebWorks Tools Limited, and people have been downloading it. And then it's something you can download, and it's entirely free. So you can download it. It has a documentation right there on the overview page. You can just click help documentation, and you can read through how to use the API Agent app. We use this app in-house to manage integrations, and we're having so much fun managing different clients. Because basically what we do is that we just install it for the client, and then we're able to build their integrations internally. So your clients don't have to worry about sharing their data. Their data remains in their Zoho Creator app that you downloaded for them. And Zoho Creator maintains privacy for the content that you give to them. So if you're a software engineer, you can download this application for your client, and they can use it to manage the integrations. If they have maybe an IT manager in-house, you can tell the person what to do, guide the person on how to use this app, and manage your integrations accordingly. What's interesting is that you can revoke integrations from inside the API agent. Look at the instructions here on how to revoke refresh token and all that. So that has been sorted out. Let's continue from here. So to take you through a rundown, okay, if you are building an application, you have to register your application. So if you have like a mobile app and all that, you have to make sure that your application is registered before you can use it in the API console. And to register it, you just need to follow some steps here and choose what you will. Okay, so the details required are also mentioned here. Now, there are a couple of options for your applications, and I'm going to explain each of them to you. So the first one is the client-based applications. Now, client-based applications are applications that are built from your own end. So for instance, if you have maybe a desktop software, or you have some other interface, maybe a POS machine, or some other hardware or infrastructure, and you are going to be connecting to the Zoho API, you are going to be using the client-based application interface. As long as your interface does not use a web server. Now, server-based application is the kind of application that uses a web server. That means it has an IP address and some other things, and it follows the HTTP protocol. Then you need to use server-based application. The server will be requested, it will go back up. Now, that is about server-based applications. Now, we have mobile-based applications. If you are building apps on mobile apps, especially for smartphones and tablets, you need to use mobile-based applications as your own client type. Then we have non-browser applications. So the first two we mentioned, client-based and server-based, are browser applications. And the difference between client-based and server-based is that client-based applications are like applications you have on your system that are not on any server. It doesn't have to do with any servers, but it has to run on browsers, by the way. So you have to use a browser for client-based for those applications, but you cannot host it on a server, or it will not make reference to a server. But server-based makes reference to servers. Then we have non-browser applications. These cannot be your desktop applications, smart TVs, printers, point of sale, and all of that. These are non-browser applications that need to access the API. You can use that. Sorry, I mentioned POS earlier, but what I was referring to is that you must have a different kind of application that is not hosted on a server. So POS is under non-browser applications if you are building in that light. Then for self-client, which is where we're going to focus on today, we're going to work majorly with self-clients. Okay, but in the future, maybe if you want to work with any of the other application types, you can reach out to us and we'll guide you accordingly. So today we're going to try to create a self-client, and we're going to understand the authorization code flow. In fact, even creating a self-client it can be cumbersome to do, because you are going to have to write code. And I really, since you know how to use Zoho, you should be able to go through this. So I think what I would do is I'm going to One moment. I'm going to, okay. I'm going to download the API Agent app or install the API Agent app into our Zoho Creator account. Okay. And this is a lazy way of building integrations. Thanks to Webwork tools, we have helped you to stay lazy by giving you the tools that make your hard work only what is worth it. So, okay, API Agent, we've already downloaded it here. I hope I'm not using this one. Okay, okay. We've not started using this. Okay, great. So we had already downloaded it here. Okay. Let me just check something. Okay. So you have full access to the application. Okay, so let's go back to the app. All right, access this application. So the first thing we're going to do is to add what we call domain locations. Okay, and to add domain locations, we have to, there are a few ways we can handle this. In fact, there are very smart ways to handle this. We're going to do it the smart way. Naturally, we can come here and add the location by choosing maybe Zoho US data center. We can go and do this, and we can say, okay, US, and we can put the URI. But we are going to use location upload, okay, so that we can get things correctly. And to use location upload, we will need to see how Zoho provides this location information. So Zoho has a link that shows you the list of all their locations. You see it in a JSON format. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to copy this and save it as a JSON file. Okay. So I'm just going to go to my text editor. And I'll save this as zoho.json. JSON file. Great. So then I'm going to, where's my app here? I'm going to now select that this is a file. I can also choose a URL if I want to work with the URL. So I'm going to try to do the two. So let's start with the URL. So this is the URL that contains the locations provided by Zoho. You can have your own URL, you can build your own thing. So I'm going to put the URL here. And I'm going to put the method for getting this. And the method for this is the get method. Okay. Now the list name and the list key. So what are we going to do about that? For list name and list key, we're going to look at what is the list name. The list name is locations. Okay. So I'm going to go to this app and call the list name. Oh no, the list name is Zoho, and the list key is locations. So this list name is a descriptive name that I want to use to, kind of list the locations that are in this list. So I want to have Zoho this, Zoho that, Zoho this. So I'm going to get each of these locations as like Zoho EU, Zoho AE, Zoho AU, and all that. So I've chosen location as the list key in the JSON. Now constraint value is a constraint key is the key in the JSON that tells you whether the matter was successful or not. And that key is result. And then the constraint has connected to the URL and it says location uploaded successfully. Now I can check the status of the location upload here. And when I click this, it shows me succeeded, added 9, updated 0, location 0 location. So 9 locations, updated 0 location. So total 9 locations, skip 0 location. So basically, it did not skip any of the locations. Okay. So if you go to domain locations, you will now see the shortcode and the location name. The location name is made fully uppercase, while the shortcode is made lowercase. So you see now that the Zoho locations have all been documented. So you have accounts.zoho.com, you have everything in the domain URI. So this makes it easy for you to add all the locations you want to use for your integrations from your data source. So you don't ever need to sit down and start cracking your head. You can just have your application give access to Zoho Creator for locations and boom, you have access to the location that is needed. So now that we've done this, we're now going to add the self-client config. So we're going to create a self-client config, but we're not going to give it all the... so I'm going to turn off my screen sharing at some point so that you don't get to see the client secret here. And you have to bear with me because that is also going to cause a havoc in whatever we are doing here. So especially if somebody has access to our general client secret. Okay. Now I think that if you go to the API console here and you choose self-client, okay, it's going to generate credentials for this. But now I don't think you'll be able to delete your self-client. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now while I create a self-client. But you know that you have to click create here. So it has asked me if I'm sure that I want to enable self-client. It's going also asking me to authenticate. I'm telling you because you are not seeing my screen. I will soon come back to sharing my screen. And I'm creating the self-client now. So self-client has been created. Unfortunately, I cannot show you on my screen, but let me also check something. I just want to be sure about something with this self-client before I will know whether I can share my screen or not. Okay, great. All right, so let me see if I can delete the self-client. Yes, I have deleted it. Now I'm going to add it again. Okay, so let me check. Okay, so the credentials can be changed, so there's nothing to worry about. So let me share my screen again. I will delete each time we have a session like this. I'm going to be deleting the self client that I use, so that or I won't even give them access to much scope. So whatever scope I give access to, what I'm just going to do is to um, revoke that access and delete the self client. So technically, I'll delete the self client. But as long as a self client is not giving access to a scope, yeah, there's really nothing to worry about. So this is me just guiding you to let you know how safe you should feel. Okay. So this is a self client. You see, this is client ID, this is client secret. I can show you the secret because I have nothing to worry about. The secret is not even a full in this place. You have to scroll to see the end of it and all that. So now, this has not been granted access to any scope. One of the biggest problems with API management that we have when we're writing code is that we would have to know what we did. With Zoho now, for instance, you can add a scope, yes, to an integration. The scope is being grouped by a client ID, client secret, yeah, and then you have what we call the temporary token, that's the authentication token, and then you have the refresh token. Okay, so the way it works is when you generate a code, that's when you generate a code, you get a temporary code, which is like an auth code. You use that code to generate a refresh token. Then the refresh token would now be used to generate access tokens each time. So let me walk you through very carefully. Okay, your first step is to generate a self client. Your second step is when you generate to generate a code. The code is going to be a temporary code. It's going to be your let me see here, 1 second. That code is going to be your temporary code here. Okay. Now, when you generate a temporary code, you can now use that temporary code to generate a refresh token. The refresh token would then generate an access token with all of these details you see in this app. Now, the issue here, the major issue people usually have is taking note of all these things. Like, as a software engineer, how do you know when the refresh token was generated, when it expires, access token expiry duration, and all of those kind of things? How do you know those details? How do you even know when there are errors in your generation? You have to write code and be debugging and be cracking through your code. So what you can do in this case is to start this setup from here. So I'm going to do, let's say, try to get, let me go to an API scope now. Let's go to Zoho Creator API. You get the scope from the API documentation of the Zoho product. So I just did a Google search, and this is Zoho Creator API. So let's look for something to use in this API. Let's go to data APIs. So let's say we don't have any serious record in this account here. This is like a test account, so there's nothing serious here. So what we're going to do is that we're going to have a scope that allows us to get a list of applications. Okay, so get a list of applications in this account. Let's just work with that just for learning purposes. But we can use this API to do other things in our own implementation. So ordinarily, we are supposed to write all this code with Deluge. Yeah, we are supposed to do all these things in code form. But we're not starting with code form because I want it to be easy for you to enter integrations. Because we've already built an application. So if you sign up with Zoho Creator, you can start doing integrations without actually writing serious code. And sometimes it can reduce your cost of engineering. So if you have a software team that you're working with, you can get a little discount by using this our API agent, because the software engineers will thank you for giving them the API agent to use. So this is Get Applications. In every Zoho API product, you have the scope. The scope for Get Application is Zoho creator.dashboard.read. So now that we have the scope, we're now going to go to the, let's close the documentation now. Let's close this, we're done with that. Now we can see the list of our apps, yes? We have about 5 apps in this account. So we don't have to add scope manually here, okay? We have to, you can put data manually if you're just creating a database. But if you want this system to do the generation of refresh token for you, if you want this app to do it for you, you just click add from here after putting details. If there was an error, it will report an error. But when you say manual input, this is going to work like a database. So you just type everything here and save. So this will be a database for you. But once you turn off manual input, you have 2 options. You can fetch authentication data only, or you can actually fetch refresh token. So fetch authentication data, what this does is that it helps you to get your, to use the existing refresh token in the record to just change your authentication token. Okay, so this just helps you to change your access token. Okay, but if you do not choose that option, if you don't choose fetch auth data only, then the system is going to regenerate your refresh token. That means you have to use a new refresh token. But the good thing is that this app is also a pathway to integration. So if you change your refresh token, it's not going to be a big deal if this app is your middleware. Okay. So now we have first all data only, but we will not choose that. We will leave this like this because we want to use this app to do our generation of refresh token and generation of our access token. These are temporary codes that we're going to get from the auth side. So first step, like I said, we go to the self-client side of things, the API console. So let me shift this window a bit. Close this documentation. So we have our scope here, yes? So we'll copy this scope. You can have several scopes here. You can like have different scopes in one API connection. But the scopes, you may have to separate them. You definitely have to separate them by using commands or space. Okay? So when you come here, you drop the scope, dashboard read. Let me even put a second scope. Let's say, after getting applications, let's get forms. So maybe the forms in the application. Now this is meta application read. That's the scope. And I believe that these forms will also give us access to reports, I think. Yeah, meta application read. So we'll have reports. We'll have, what else are we going to have access to? So always check what scopes will give you to do. Okay, this is meta form read. No, we'll not have access to that. So we'll have access to forms, reports, have access to pages, I think. Yes, we'll have access to sections. Yes, sections. And okay, this one is dashboard read. So dashboard read. So what are happening is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These items: forms, reports, pages, sections, applications by workplace. So if you are somebody who you're documenting the apps that your company has created, and you have an application that's sourcing it out automatically from Zoho Creator, whenever apps are created, good for you. You can get that updated information. So now this is, so let's put a comma here. Now I'm going to copy this and keep somewhere just to make sure that I don't lose stuff. Okay. Now, time duration is how long the temporary code should last. Now, if you are doing something temporary, like if you want to generate a refresh token, you do not want the same temporary code to be used to generate refresh tokens. And when you generate a temporary code, for instance, or you generate different temporary codes, you have a limit. The next one, I think it's like 20 you can generate. Even refresh token, I think it's about 20. So don't generate this thing 100 times. Now for us, let's put 10 minutes here. Now we will say read description, read Zoho Creator dashboard, application objects statistics. Okay. All right. So this, we have added our scope. So let's now try to create our temporary code, generate the temporary code. So we'll click create. All right, it's asking us for permission again to verify our identity. So we're just going to verify this, our golden identity. Okay, then we click create again. So it has generated this code. So I will click copy. Then I will go to our application here. Now, in order to make this fast, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to say read Zoho Creator statistics or Zoho Creator statistics. Okay, we'll choose the URI, which is like Zoho US for us. Now the URI part is something we can get from the documentation. So the path is OAuth/v2/token. So if OAuth gets to another version, we should be able to specify the path for that version. So OAuth/v2/token. Now, if you are using another product, you can also work with that product to do what you want to do, or something else in Zoho. So let's do OAuth/v2/token. So it has done OAuth/v2/token. So let's drop our temporary code here. And then let us go to, now that we've copied this, let's go to our client ID. We'll copy the client ID here. And then we'll go to client secret to copy the client secret here. So we fill this form correctly now, Zoho Creator statistics. Now, let us now, and this thing works for any Zoho Creator account, even your own, you watching this video. If I have your details here, I can access these scopes accordingly. But again, the scopes have to be added manually in the API console under self-client. So you cannot just access the scopes as you wish. So now it's time to add it. So I'm going to click add. So I can come to all self-client configs and see what happened. So it has shown me everything. It generated a refresh token. It showed the dates the token was generated. And then we have the API domain name here. Okay, Zoho APIs. And then we have the access token. You see now, as separated by comma, we have the two different scopes, dashboard read and meta application read. Okay, and we have the access token expiry duration. And this was the time the access token, okay, this is the expiry date of the access token. So this is 1243 right now. So this access token is going to expire by 1342. So it lasts for only 1 hour. So we can use the same access token for 1 hour, and I think we can generate a maximum of 20 or so. Okay. So and this is the access token here, this is the refresh token. So when we want to generate another access token, we will use the refresh token to generate the access token that we want to work with. But we can already use this access token in our code. So if you're using this application as a middleware, you can use the access token in your code. So let's see if we can do something with this data now. Let's go to one of our applications. Let's go to Schedule Manager, or we'll go to Schedule Manager now. And let's try to do an API integration. Are you ready? So we're just going to create a function here. And we're going to call this test integration. This is default. We'll create function here. So now we have taken care of all the issues. And if we want to be smart, we can access our fellow Zoho creator accounts. Like for instance, we can access the API agent app and then access the integration that we need. One of the beautiful things about building the app is that since the Zoho creator app, we can use the Zoho creator to access the app. But I want you to see the details in code first before we cross-reference with the app. So for us to do get applications, what instructions were we given? Okay, we were asked to invoke a URL like this. Okay, but in order to invoke this URL, okay, this is using connection. No. No, this is not supposed to be. We won't do connection. Let's do it the way it should be. I don't know. This is not supposed to. Okay, let's use this. The example is not supposed to show connection. I don't know why they are. It's because it's a dilute example. Okay, no problem. We will go by principle. We will just go by principle. So in order to work with the API in Zoho Dilute, we use what is called invoke. Okay, invoke URL. Now what you need to work with is the access token. But just for the sake of this our time that may have passed by 10 minutes, this access token may have, I think it hasn't expired. But the refresh token, let's see. Okay, the temporary code would have expired, but the access token would last for 1 hour. So I think we can use the access token, but I will tell you how to generate another access token using the same refresh token. Okay, but let us start by using the access token first. Okay, so to use the access token, we're going to first of all define that access token. So let's go to our application and copy this access token before we go into deep integrations. So this is the access token. So we'll say access token. Okay. We're going to put this here. So that's our access token. Then we'll say we are now going to deal with our header data. We need to have header data. So we'll have our header data. And header data is what is called a map in Deluge because it carries different definitions. And if we go by our documentation here, the only header information we need is authorization. So we're going to define authorization. And we're going to define it up to this point. So we'll say header data dot puts. We'll put authorization here, put a comma, then we are going to put a value here. Now this value is Zoho auth token with your actual auth token. Okay, so we open quotes here and drop this. But this is not your auth token. As you can see, this is an example auth token. That is your authentication token. And your authentication token is actually your access token. So we're going to do what is called concatenation. We're going to remove this token here, and we're going to concatenate access token. So the next thing we need to do is invoke URL. Now that we have our access token and we have our header, we'll now invoke URL. This automatically gives us the template fields that we need to work with Zoho's invoke URL command. Now we can now say this should be this command. Let this command be get applications. Okay. And then what is the URL for get applications? We go to the documentation and we see the URL here. So we copy it. And then we open quotes and place it here. Now, what is the request type? We can see that it is get. If you check, you see the request type here is get. And then if you come back, what are the parameters? If you check here, we'll find that there are no parameters. This is just to list all the applications, yes? So this is going to list the applications in your dashboard. Okay. Application categories. Oh, okay. Okay, I see. So category 1, category 2. Okay, this explains that. Okay, so all right. So now that we specified this, we specified get. As you can see, get is the method. The method is get. This is using connection, and of course, you can use connection in Zoho Creator to access. They are just doing this because this is Zoho Creator affair. Okay, but you don't need to use connection at this point. You need to learn how to do this by yourself. Okay. So there are no parameters, but there are headers. So we'll go to header data. So in this case, it's either you use headers or you use connection. Okay. And then we have done the code for getting applications. So if we go info get applications, we're going to get the list of applications in this account. So we have schedule manager, we have various things here. So let's select this now. And let's go to JSON formatter so that this can be tidy. I usually just use this so that I can make sense of what I get. So now we have different applications. So we have schedule manager here. We have the date format of the application. We have who created it, the workspace name, and the category, whether it's a local workspace. Is it 24-hour format, all of that. So we have the contacts manager. We have the API agent itself, and we have the storekeeper, and we have the business manager. So do you see now that this application, we can even get the time zone of this application. So if you are building something that has to do with time zones, and you want to know who is building in Nigeria or whatever, anything, you can get that information about the application. And also, you can get the date format of the application, how the application does dates, and whether it's 24-hour time format or not. So basically, this is a beautiful outcome from today, and I'm glad we've been able to get to this point. But before we go, we're going to do one more thing. In order for you to be able to make sense of access token and manage your own access tokens, we're going to teach how to generate access tokens using your refresh token, because this access token is going to expire. Okay, and basically we would let us go to the documentation now and try to do that from self-client. So you see the steps. So you use the access token to make API calls. Okay. So in order to get the refresh token, there's what you have to do. To get the refresh token, you see that code we copied the other time. You have to generate a code like that in order to get the refresh token. Okay. And this refresh token is going to be for the specific integration that you are having. So we are going to use code to generate our second refresh token, the difficult way that you have been dreading. Okay? So let me put this in the comments. So this is as instructed by Zoho. This is how this works. So now we need to call this URL in order to be able to generate our refresh token and access token. Now, if you have an access token, you can generate refresh token. So let's put a comment, say generate. Let's say generate refresh token. These are the steps. Okay. Refresh access token. Of course, this will be using refresh token. Okay. And then we also have the access API. Okay. So now that we have gotten the URL and we know the steps, let's now, in fact, let us take the instructions for generating Okay, we took this one. Now let's go to the second one. This second one is how to generate to refresh the access token. And I'll tell you the difference between the first and the second one. The first one requires you to, let me just finish doing this. So if you look at these two URLs, let me put this at the top so that we can follow by perspective. If you look at the two URLs, you will see a difference. The first one uses, it uses the authorization code, while the second one uses the refresh token. Okay. Now, the thing is that when you say grant type, okay, this one helps you to generate the refresh token, but the grants that you are given is with the authorization code. Then this one helps you to regenerate the access token, but the grant that you are given is with the refresh token. Okay? So this is the authorization code, and this is the refresh token. So we're going to now use Zoho principles to make this connection work. We don't need to add headers in this case because we're not actually doing the work. We're just using our coding efforts here. So let's now call this. Now remember something. In this example, this use accounts.zoho.in. This is for India. So we're going to quickly change this to .com so that it doesn't cause problems. Now we need to do our invoke URL. And we're going to say generate refresh token. Now, don't be mistaken. This also generates access token. So when you generate a refresh token, you get an access token by default. Okay? But if you want to generate, now you can build a function for doing this in your own application, which is what we will achieve by Monday. But for now, I just want to help you feel the whole process. On Monday, we're going to make this a function. Then on Wednesday, we're going to now use the API agent app as a middleware for integration with Zoho Flow. Okay, so let's do generate access token now. I will say invoke URL. It will automatically give us the different options. So in invoke URL, we're going to copy this URL accordingly. Now, it's not very tidy putting your variables inside URLs like that, okay? And I won't teach you to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that you should define your variables. I think the only thing you can put maybe in the URL is authorization code. But maybe in some other bigger scope, you can define that differently. Or maybe we can define it differently. Let's do something here. So let's call this client ID. Let's do client secrets. Let's do what's the grant type? It's authorization code, yeah? So let's do auth code. Then what else do we need again? I think that's about it. Then we can put the grant type. And put it as nothing for now. Now let's now start getting our items. Okay. Where are we? Okay. So we copy the client ID. In fact, since we have this app now, we can start using this, but let's take it from here now. Copy the client ID. We paste it. We go to our application again. We copy the client secret. We paste it. Then in terms of auth code, we have to generate a temporary auth code in order to be able to do this, yes? So I don't want to put any process here, so we will just do it manually and then we'll build a function for this on Monday. So, but I want to make sure everything is in order. So the grant type for this is going to be authorization code. So let's take authorization code now. The auth code is something that we will generate shortly. Now we need to generate refresh token with these instructions. And in order to generate refresh token, this was, let me see, what did they say we should do here? Okay, so this is a get call. So we will say get. We don't need to do parameters here because it's already in the URL. We don't need headers in this one. We don't even need connection in this one. Okay. So I think that we can do our concatenation now. So we'll do plus client ID plus. Do concatenation here. We'll do plus client secrets plus. We'll do concatenation here. We'll do plus grant type plus. And we'll do concatenation here. We will do plus grant plus auth code. And it ends here. Okay, so this will give us the access token and refresh token. Now, if we look at our instructions, that first one, which is we've done this from the we will do this from the interface now, but this gives us access to, this is what we need. We'll pass all this. We've already specified this now. Then the response, these are what we are going to get. This is what we're going to get. And even the API domain respectively. Okay. Token type bearer and the expiry of the access token that we have created. The refresh token stays alive with what we have generated, so we can continue using it, but there's a maximum that you can create. There's a maximum number of refresh tokens that you can create. So this will give us an access token that we can work with, and then we can use the access token to make calls. Now, if we want to refresh the access token, we can use the refresh token accordingly. So let us, we're just going to document this code and use them progressively. So we have done getting the refresh token. Okay. Now let's do something to get the access token. To either get the access token or to refresh for the access token. Okay. Now this is not a good order for this function, but I don't want to go into function for now. I'm just showing you how to do things. Still on Monday. So here we have generate access token. Now remember that for here, we have client ID, client secret, which is correct, but the grant type has to change. So the grant type is refresh token. So we'll say refresh token. That's the grant type. And then the information that is being shared is not code. The information is equally refresh token. Okay. Now, the information here is also not hot code. So the information here is going to be generate refresh token dot get, no, sorry, let's type refresh token here. No, refresh token equals to generate refresh token dot get refresh token. Okay. Now let's call this first access token. And we'll say generate refresh token dot get access token. So this is the first access token. All right. But then the second access token in this view, let's call this second access token. Second access token. Second access token would now be equal to generate access token dot get access token. So this is the second access token. But the refresh token in this case is gotten from here already. So we have the refresh token, we have the first access token, then we have the generate access token giving us the second access token from this refresh. Now for refresh token, we have to use this refresh token field here. Okay, where did we do? Okay, no, here. So let's call it second access token. Because when you generate a new access token, the old access token is going to be expired. So you need to put enough conditional statements to deal with your access tokens. So now we have built this integration in the proper way that things should be. The first step is to generate this code, which we are going to paste in here. In fact, let's even just make this a little bit of like a function. Let's just call this, this is still void, but we're going to say string, and we're going to call this authentication code. Or let's call this authorization code. Okay, so that we can put this authorization code here. Another thing we can do is we can make this auth code at once, so that the auth code just scrolls eventually. Now here's one beautiful thing I want us to be able to do when we're building functions like this. In order to save ourselves the stress of error management, we can put a try catch. So we can say this is try, and then close this here and put a catch. So that if there's an error, we're going to read the error instead. That way, the application is going to run for whatever string you supply, but the errors are going to be, the error cases are going to be different. Okay, so why I put this as an argument is because it's something we're going to generate differently for today. But in the near future, we're going to, let's say by Monday, we'll have a proper function for this. So let's go through what we have done. The auth code comes in here. We have the client ID, client secret defined. So when it comes in here, we would put this code and everything here, and it gives us a refresh token. Okay. When we get the refresh token, we get our first access token. We can use the first access token if we like, but then I want to also let you know. I also want to let you know Okay, here's one thing too. Here's one thing about using the app that we built. Using the app we built, you can keep an array of your tokens and your expiry dates so that when you are using the app as a middleware, you don't have to do this kind of mess up here. Because what you're going to do is that you're going to be generating access tokens twice. And that's a very bad thing to do. Okay? So I will tell you how to come out of that problem shortly. Because we are going to document the data that is retrieved from this outcome. So we're going to info different things here. We're going to info the main output. We're going to info something to give a space, maybe star in 4 places. Okay. Then we're going to info the various activities. In fact, let's even info different things. Okay. We'll start with star. Then we'll info generate refresh token. Then we info generate access token. Then let's put our star in between. Okay, great. So this is going to be the output of our app. Otherwise, we're going to give errors or return the error. But even in returning, let's see. No. Let's put this refresh token where it should be. So that if it succeeded, we'll be able to report the refresh token. Okay. Then let's put this generate access token where it should be. So access token generated, then this get applications is the tail end of this. Now, what we're going to really do here is that if there's an error, we're going to put a starter to this, and then we'll end it from here. But if there's no error, then the starter is going to start from the first item. Okay? So I think this is good now. So we're going to generate another access token. So let's do execute. It's asking for auth code. So we're going to try to generate an auth code here. Where is our stuff? Now to generate this auth code, let's make this auth code to have only one scope. Okay, so that we can differentiate it. And this auth code has only the scope of reading of applications, not the dashboard. Okay. Yes, applications are not the dashboard. So by changing the scope, by setting the scope is going to do something entirely different. So let's do this 10 minutes. Let's say apps only. Okay. And then we generate. It keeps confirming, yes. Okay, so we have this code now. So we copy it and we go paste it here and click submit. So this didn't give us what we expect. The access token is invalid. That's what we got here. Okay, so this is says the access token is invalid. I'm wondering why. Okay, let me process one step at a time. So let's close this. Now let's close this too. Okay. Okay. So I just want to keep this hidden so that I can understand where the error came from. So I'm going to start from here alone. So it says the rent access token is not defined. Okay, let's just keep this in perspective. Okay, that's because I ended it at this point. Okay, great. So now we need to do this again so that I can know where the problem is from. Okay. So this is giving an error, and I need to know why. Let me first of all copy this code outside. This is for meta application read. Let me copy the client ID just to be sure that we're on the same page. Client ID is correct. Copy the client secrets. Client secret is correct. So accounts is client ID, client secret, grant type. Now grant type is authorization code. So I think that because I used get, it was expecting credentials. All right. Okay, it was expecting credentials and it has not gotten any of those credentials correctly. So I think that what I need to do here is to define parameters for credentials. So I would say um, auth credentials as a map. So we say auth credentials dot put client ID. Then we'll put what our client ID here. Then we'll copy this and use it for typing. Auth credentials, client secrets. We'll put our client secrets here. Auth credentials, grant type. We'll put our grant type here. Auth credentials, code. We'll put our auth code here. Okay. Then we will then put our parameters to be auth credentials. Okay. Then we can call this get. Then we can remove all these. And I believe that when we do this, it would process properly. So let's go to our API console or go to where we generated this stuff. Paste the auth code. Okay. Okay, this is trying to be not sure what this is about, but let's put this as to string. It still came up like this. Let me try post here. Oh, okay. So this is post. That's the mistake that I made. I'm supposed to post this. Are you trying to tell me that? Okay. I think that's what I missed. So you see now that there's a new scope now for this particular auth token that I created. Okay. So, but unfortunately now, and I can still use this auth token to create more. Okay, within the 10 minutes that we started. You know, this expires in the authorization code that we have expired in 10 minutes. But unfortunately, you see that the data we get here doesn't even tell us the time that the refresh token was generated. Do you understand? We don't have that information. So this keeps us a bit stranded. Do you see how difficult it is as a software engineer to track these things? That's why the API agent app is there. So now that we have the solution to this problem, we're just going to solve it by putting the auth credentials across. So we're going to set the auth credentials here as well. Okay. So auth credentials now, we don't have to change the client ID and secret again. But we have to add one more thing to auth credentials, which is the refresh token. Okay. And in this refresh token, the value is refresh token. Okay. And then the grant type, we've already seen where the grant type has changed, so we can set it. So we're going to remove all this data here. We'll make this post. And, oh, sorry. We'll make this post. And then we'll add parameters. I forgot to put the quote here. I missed it. So parameters here will now be auth credentials. Great. So this will give us the second access token guy. And then we can now continue with our access token. Now, you will notice that because we have a limited scope, we will not be able to to list the applications in the account. So it's saying that the access token is either invalid or it has expired. Okay. Yeah, because the code has expired. This code that we generated 10 minutes has already reached. So let's now go and generate another one. We're going to do meta application rate. And we're going to revoke what we do just now. So I am taking note of what I am doing in the meta application rate. And I'm also going to take this refresh token here too. Yeah, so the refresh token, I have taken note of it. So I have the first one to revoke. And this is what you struggle with as a software engineer, that I'm just trying to show you. This is the struggle, this is the hustle. This is how we suffer. Okay, now you see how I'm moving across screens and trying to find myself. So that is the problem. So I'm going to generate this a second time and hopefully take the whole data out so that I don't bloat this account. Because one of the things that can happen to you in this experience is bloating. Okay. So you know that I have already generated like a refresh token and all that has this meta application read. So I'm going to generate something that works with dashboard read alone. So I'm using dashboard read, 10 minutes, read list of apps, create, it's asking me to confirm now. So we copy this and then we keep it somewhere first, which is the temporary code. Temporary code after this one. Close this, save this, and let's run. So you see that everything works and it also listed the applications. So we have our access token guy. And we have our list of applications. So I don't know why it did not give the star at the bottom. But I guess I'll correct that at a different time. So let me drop the outcome. Great. So you see now that we have a list of applications, right? So we have successfully generated done the whole process. So let's look at what we have here. We have like the access token, refresh token. Now we have another access token, which is different. And what we used for listing the applications is the second access token. Ideally, what you're supposed to do is that you are supposed to check whether there's already an existing access token before you decide to generate another one. And that's the reason for creating the API agent in the first place, so that that investigation can be done effectively and we can toggle between generating access token, revoking one, and having another one as it were. So this API agent app is not just a database app, it's something that is like a developer's companion. So let's now finally get to clean up this code. Before we clean up this code, I'm just going to try to keep it somewhere. Let me see if I can keep this code somewhere. It does. Okay, so I have backed up the code so that I can get it back later. So I'm going to start everything I'm doing from only access token. Okay, this was where I goofed. Okay. So I'll start everything from second access token alone, since I have already created the credentials that I need. Okay, good. So we have the second access token. And for this to make sense, we can then make sure that this second access token is a variable instead of something we got from our. Okay, so this second access token. Why is this saying generate access token? Okay, no, it's not supposed to info that then. So this is it. And let's try to run this with fake information. Let's put something else. And it says authorization failure, the access token is either invalid or expired, blah, blah, blah. So now let us start organizing our data in the API agent app. So I'm going to close this. And then this is our first integration. Zoho Creator Statistics. Now let's create another one, but this time it's going to be like a database. So we will say Zoho creator, or let's do ZC stats, and let's call this apps only. Choose the auth URL here. And what was that instruction again? We have OAuth version 2 token. OAuth / v2 / token. Then client ID. We need to get client ID from the app. Let's open this. I'll copy client ID here. Then we have client secrets. Now, we have already created a temporary code, yes, at that first time. So we're going to document the temporary code. We didn't document the other one. Okay, no, it's in the other code. Is it there? I don't think we did. Okay, but anyway, let's just work with these two. Okay, let's work with these two. We are working with the very first one and the one we have already created. So this is the temporary code here. Then we'll say manual inputs. What's our connection URL? Now we have to build up this connection URL if we're documenting. Okay. Now to build it up, we have the code again. Then we have the client ID, client secrets, brand type, authorization code. So this was the connection URL. Then what was our refresh token? This was our refresh token for that second one. Now, refresh token, when was it generated? The question is, I really do not know, so we can pick any time there. Again, this is where problem can come from if you don't document properly. Now, the API domain name, what's the API domain name? This is this one. Then what was the access token? Access token is this. What is the refresh token? The refresh token is this. Oh, sorry. Refresh token. This is the refresh token. The access token will then Put the access token. This is the access token. Okay. Now, what's the auth type? Auth type is bearer. Expired duration is 3600. It's 3600. Then what is the scope? The scope is what we had here. Zoho creator meta application read. Then if there were errors, you can document the errors. So when you do this, the system would save the information, but it will not produce any error because it was manually provided. But this one was automatically done, and this was the outcome. Okay. Now, if you try to save this one again, it will return an error because this particular refresh token, the access token. So, for instance, if you want to generate another access token, now you know you have to keep generating, yes. But if you do this and just update, it will generate another refresh token. So, in order for us not to have an error, we have to now change the setting to say fetch auth data only. So what we're going to do here, we'll come to edit and we'll say fetch auth data only. Okay. So what this is going to do is it's going to use the existing refresh token to generate another auth token that we can use. You see? So it first auth data and then it generated another access token that we can use. So you see that this is still 1242 as the day the refresh token was created and time. But you see now that the access token expiry date is 1445, which is 1 hour from that is 1345. So exactly 1 hour from now, this is going to expire. This access token is going to expire. So you can use it to access dashboard and applications. Now, this access token, I can tell you for free that it probably has expired. And you see that it was supposed to expire by, okay, maybe 2:43, I'm not sure. I put a time here, but this is not the best thing to do. So what we're going to do here now is we're going to take this refresh token, yeah? We will not do manual input again. We'll say fetch auth data. Then we will update. So what this has done now is that it will then generate the scope and everything and give us a new access token. So now we have two access tokens, two different scopes, the same self-client. So we have two different self-client configs. One does the whole reading of all the applications, while the other one just reads the apps that is the part of an app. So let's try to use this access token now. Let's pick this access token and put it on this function. And we have a list of applications because it gives you access to applications. But if we pick this particular access token that we just generated, this is just inside the application, yes? So we try to run this again. We're going to get an error in this case. This is an invalid OAuth scope. Please regenerate the OAuth token corresponds to the API with proper OAuth. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having us this time. In these 2 hours, these glorious 2 hours, we've been able to show you how to use the Zoho API, set up your code, put things together, and now you can see that the API agent is a lifesaver for carrying out integrations directly to Zoho. Now, one beautiful way you might use this API agent as a middleware is that you can have some of these activities take place automatically from behind the scenes. So you can have, I think you also can even use the API itself. Like you can go to the API to fetch some data. So you can build your own custom API in Zoho Creator. We're going to teach you how to do that so that you can use that API to fetch information that you want to use. So if you are not using Zoho Creator integration, maybe from Zoho Flow or inside Zoho, you can integrate to Zoho Creator by creating your own API to this particular app. Let me even show you how to do that. So you can create your own API here. Okay, so let's go to microservices. So here you can go ahead and create a new microservice, custom API, and you want to say fetch API auth data. Okay, you click next, you select the method, which is get. You can make it post whatever you like. OAuth 2 if you want people to go through scope of Zoho and all of that. And then if they go through that scope, you now choose the user rights permission and all of that. But if you don't want to go through that trouble, you can just say public key. Now you see that this is going to give you a code. Like you can have your own response type. So this is standard response type, the code, and all the data that will be brought out. But you can have your own custom response type. Okay? So when you choose custom response type, it allows you to choose your status code and your response code. So your status code can range like 100 to something else, and then you can put like what it relates to. So for instance, if you want to show a status of success, you can put 0 as success as your status code. But what it's going to check for is 3000. So it's going to report 0, but it's going to report 0 when the actual status is 3000. Okay? And then it's going to report the other ones when they are what they are. Okay? So this is a way out of it. Or you can just follow the standard API, the standard method. Just use 3000, and then any other status code will come out according to Zoho standards. Then when you go next, you get the opportunity to select the application you want to create the API for, this API agent. You choose the namespace. The namespace is auth core. Then you see fetch keys. If you go to defaults, yeah. Well, the instructions are you should use auth core. I'm not sure that this is going to be a good idea for you, but by the way the app was developed, you should use auth core. But if you say default, yes, default just does validate URL. But auth core, this is not even doing very well. Auth core gives you access to the integration. So let's go to API agent again. You choose auth core and you use fetch keys function. Okay. So you see now that you can use your own, make an API call to get data from the app. And tada, you have your own public key. Okay, so you can use this public key now, like you can call it up and hit the API to get information out of this app. So if you want to get something out of this application, if you go to the documentation, you will see how to use this. We're going to treat this at another time, but for now, I'm going to disable this. I don't want to spend time doing this because our time is almost fast spent. So, but for now, this is an API that can be used. So I have disabled this, and for the sake of sanctity and so that my Zoho account, this Zoho account is not messed up, I'm going to delete the self-client code. So self-client is deleted. Okay, it's asking me to confirm. Okay. Okay. So let's try to delete the self-client again. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, and see